Have you ever stopped to think about World War One? I mean, really think about how much of its true horror, its lasting impact we might have forgotten, or maybe just underestimated.
That's a powerful question, and it's exactly what we're diving into today.
Yeah, we're exploring G.J. Meyer's really compelling book, A World Undone, the story of the Great War.
It's quite a book, more than just history dates and battles. It gets into the devastation, the lasting consequences, how it fundamentally reshaped everything.
Absolutely. And Meyer, he's got this background as an author, a journalist, and you can tell he's done his homework. Deep research.
Definitely.
So, our mission really is to give you a shortcut through this complex period. How could one event seemingly contained just explode into this massive global upheaval that, well, changed history forever?
Meyer kicks things off right at the Flashpoint.
Yeah.
The assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand and his wife Sophie.
Yeah.
June 28th, 1914, Sarajevo.
Right. And Meyer brings out these fascinating details, things you might normally gloss over.
Like the morganatic marriage.
Exactly. Their kids couldn't inherit the throne. But also, the date itself, June 28th.
St. Vitus Day.
Yeah, a day of mourning for Serbs, linked to this historical defeat, tied up with dreams of a greater Serbia. It instantly adds layers of meaning, doesn't it? It makes it much more than just a random act.
It really does. And the assassins, part of young Bosnia, backed by the Black Hand Secret Society, Meyer lays out the chilling sequence, the bomb fails, then there's a wrong turn.
And Gavrilo Princip gets his chance. It's almost unbelievable. And those last words Meyer includes, Franz Ferdinand saying, "Sophie dear, don't die. Live for our children." It's just stark.
It grounds the huge political event in human tragedy. But then the reaction, Meyer points out something really strange.
The lack of immediate panic.
Yeah, especially in Vienna and Berlin, almost. Relief in some quarters. They saw Ferdinand as a bit of a problem, maybe.
Which is wild when you compare it to Tsar Nicholas in Russia, who actually observed mourning. It suggests this huge disconnect, right, between the political elites and the powder keg of nationalism that was about to blow.
A massive disconnect. And it raises questions about Serbia's role, the Black Hand, state responsibility.
So why so calm initially? What was driving Austria-Hungary's thinking?
Meyer digs into this deep-seated motivation. Austria-Hungary felt they could never appear weak again. They were still smarting from past humiliations.
Like the pig war, you wouldn't think a trade dispute.
But Meyer shows how Vienna saw it as Serbia defying them, a major blow to their imperial pride. It festered.
So the assassination lands on this fertile ground of resentment, and you had figures like Field Marshal Conrad pushing for military action.
Right, very aggressive, and Count Berchtold, the diplomat, seen as weaker, but he ultimately sided with Conrad after the assassination.
Okay, but where does Germany fit into this accelerating crisis?
Germany's role is just pivotal. Meyer calls it a critical miscalculation. Kaiser Wilhelm, who'd actually admired Franz Ferdinand before, pivots hard.
The infamous blank check.
Exactly. Unconditional backing for Austria-Hungary.
Right.
And neither Berlin nor Vienna seemed to grasp how incredibly dangerous this was. They totally underestimated the situation. As Meyer quotes Conrad, it felt like a desperate all-or-nothing gamble by then.
A gamble that went horribly wrong, as Meyer lays out step by step. The escalation was just relentless.
Austria-Hungary drafts this incredibly harsh ultimatum for Serbia. They basically ignore warnings about Russia getting involved.
And Serbia's response? Conciliatory, but not enough.
Pretty much. They agreed to a lot, but balked at letting Austria-Hungary run the investigation on Serbian soil. That was the sticking point.
And then mobilization.
Swiftly. Serbia, Austria-Hungary, Russia starts prepping too, and Meyer really hammers this point home. Back then, mobilization wasn't just getting ready, it was the declaration of intent. It was like pulling the trigger.
It's hard to grasp that now, how irreversible it felt. A logistical cascade, like you said.
Precisely. Once those trains started rolling, stopping them was almost unthinkable. Diplomacy was running out of time, fast.
Didn't the British try to intervene? Edward Grey?
He did. Proposed a conference. But Berlin and Vienna weren't really interested. Austria even made up some border incidents to justify declaring war.
Which they did via telegram.
Unauthorized telegrams, apparently. On July 28th, Kaiser Wilhelm tried some last-minute mediation, but communications failed. It was just too late.
It's almost darkly comic, the incompetence mixed with the tragedy. Meyer quotes someone saying these were, decent men acting for what they thought were good reasons.
The little of what they did produced the results they intended. That captures it perfectly. The system, the pressures, they were overwhelming individuals.
And fear was a huge part of that system.
Absolutely. Meyer highlights Tsar Nicholas's agony over sending men to die. Think of the responsibility, he said. But the pressure to mobilize was immense.
Those Nicky and Willie telegrams between him and the Kaiser show that personal connection, but politics just swept it away.
Fear's a bad counselor, as the Austrian ambassador apparently noted. It drove decisions.
And for Germany, this fear, plus their military plans, created what Meyer calls a self-created trap.
Right, the Schlieffen plan. This plan relied entirely on speed-crush France through Belgium before Russia could fully mobilize.
So any Russian mobilization felt like a direct, immediate threat that demanded Germany attack first.
Exactly. Meyer puts it starkly. Every day of mobilization brought Russia closer to being ready. Germany felt backed into a corner, largely by its own inflexible plan. They couldn't wait, couldn't negotiate, even when the Tsar offered to mobilize without attacking.
And the Ottoman Empire's decline just added fuel to the fire in the Balkans, right?
Right.
More instability, more nationalism.
Definitely a key background factor Meyer includes. That power vacuum was crucial.
So the fuse is lit, the plans are in motion. August 2nd, German troops enter Luxembourg, issue an ultimatum to Belgium.
Which King Albert famously refuses. And boom, Britain's entry becomes almost inevitable by August 4th. The scale of the war just exploded.
And the nature of the war became clear almost immediately. Brutal.
Meyer really paints that picture. While French General Joffre is still stuck on the cult of the offensive, thinking the main attack won't come through Belgium.
The Germans are advancing with overwhelming artillery, and the reports of atrocities against civilians start coming out.
Which galvanizes public opinion, especially against Germany. You get that quote from de Gaulle. All the courage in the world cannot prevail against gunfire. The reality of modern warfare hit hard and fast.
A sobering dose of reality. How did those first battles play out? The British Expeditionary Force, the BEF?
Small but professional. Volunteers, mostly working class. Kaiser Wilhelm called them the Old Contemptibles.
Derisively, I assume.
Yes, but they fought hard at Mons and Charleroi, inflicted surprising casualties. Meyer notes the German commander, Kluck, underestimated them, gave them breathing room.
Meanwhile, Joffre's realizing his offensive strategy is a disaster.
Huge losses forced his hand. And on the Eastern Front, complete disaster for Russia at Tannenberg. Decisive German victory, 250,000 Russian casualties. A massive blow to their morale right at the start.
Wow, so much happening simultaneously. Then comes the Marne. Meyer presents this as a real turning point.
Absolutely. The battle that saved Paris, though it wasn't one big clash, more like a series of maneuvers, German Chief of Staff Moltke basically admitted defeat. We have had successes, but we have not had victory.
Why? What stopped them?
Exhaustion, mainly. Meyer describes Kluck's troops marching 40 kilometers a day, terrible conditions, roads destroyed, constant shelling, just sheer physical breakdown. Proximity to Paris was the only thing keeping them going.
It really underscores a theme in the book, doesn't it? The human cost, the physical limits.
Massively. And then French reconnaissance spots Kluck's exposed flank. General Gallieni organizes the counterattack. The BEF helps drive a wedge between German armies.
And the Germans retreat. The war of movement is essentially over.
That's the realization. This wasn't going to be quick, it was going to grind. And that leads straight into the First Battle of Ypres, Flanders Fields.
Trench warfare begins in earnest.
Brutal, desperate fighting. Meyer describes exhausted Allied troops, critical ammo shortages. The German General Falkenhayn already saw it was going to be long and bloody. He called Ypres the profitless slaughter pit.
Grim. But Meyer also mentions the Christmas truce in 1914.
Yeah, that spontaneous moment of shared humanity. Soldiers meeting in no man's land.
Weird.
A brief, extraordinary pause in the killing.
Just a flicker, though. Because 1915 arrives, and the question Meyer poses is stark. What do we do now?
Nobody had a clear answer. Just more violence, horrific casualties, no breakthrough. Leaders were desperate for a way to win, which led them to look beyond the Western Front.
Enter Turkey.
Motivated by, well, opportunism, really. German ships enter their waters. Britain and France declare war. And this sets up the Dardanelles and Gallipoli campaigns.
A major Allied disaster.
Huge. Meyer details the failed naval attacks, the mines, the caution, then the land invasion at Gallipoli. It just became a case study in poor leadership, bad communication, underestimating the enemy.
And Mustafa Kemal emerges as a key Turkish figure.
With that famous order, I don't order you to attack, I order you to die. Gallipoli turned into another bloody stalemate, just like the Western Front. Utterly devastating for the Allies, particularly the Australians and New Zealanders.
And all this time, the technology of war is evolving, getting deadlier.
Artillery, machine guns, mortars, They define the battlefield, and then, as Meyer chronicles, the introduction of poison gas at Second Ypres in April 1915.
And a truly horrific development.
Yeah, but the book makes a crucial point. The tech often outpaced the strategy. Generals didn't know how to use these new weapons effectively for a breakthrough, so you just got mass slaughter. Attrition.
Peyton's grim quote comes to mind. Success will come to the side which has the last man.
That perfectly captures the mindset. And Meyer also ensures we don't forget the other horrors unfolding. The Armenian genocide within the Ottoman Empire, triggered by the war, fueled by nationalism and paranoia.
It shows how the war wasn't contained to the battlefields. It unleashed darkness everywhere.
Precisely. Which brings us to 1916 and Verdun.
A name synonymous with endurance, sacrifice.
All of that starts February 21st. Massive German bombardment, 100,000 shells an hour, because this ultimate symbol of French determination.
Falkenhayn's goal wasn't even to take Verdun, was it?
No. Meyer explains his strategy was brutally cynical. Bleed the French army white, inflict so many casualties they'd break. A deliberate strategy of attrition.
And the French leadership, initially unprepared.
Colonel Dryant warned them, but Joffre dismissed the threat. General Pétain had to be brought in to stabilize things. He organized the troop rotation, set up the Sacred Way supply line. Crucial steps.
Meyer also talks extensively about shell shock at Verdun, doesn't he?
Yes, the psychological impact was immense. Constant bombardment, the sheer horror. It caused breakdowns on a massive scale, but military leaders often just saw it as cowardice, didn't understand it.
Crown Prince Wilhelm's quote sums it up. Verdun ground hearts and bodies to powder.
A horrifyingly accurate description. And while Verdun raged, the Allies planned their own major offensive, the Somme.
Aimed at finally breaking through.
That was the hope. Overwhelming force, manpower, artillery. But Meyer highlights the clash in command. Haig wanted the breakthrough. Rawlinson leaned towards attrition.
So no unified plan.
Which led to chaos, especially for the inexperienced troops thrown into it.
And July 1st, 1916, the first day.
A date etched in British military history. Meyer describes the scene. Troops advancing in neat lines straight into German machine guns. Catastrophic.
Around 60,000 British casualties in one day.
The heaviest single-day loss ever. It was a horrifying failure, not just of tactics against technology, but of strategic coordination. Just tragic.
Europe must have been reeling by the end of 1916.
Absolutely exhausted. Meyer details the dire state of the Central Powers economies crumbling, people starving. Even the German Chancellor, Bethmann Hollweg, was looking for peace talks, maybe via the U.S.
But the Allies weren't interested.
No, they wanted total victory. And then Germany makes another fateful decision.
Unrestricted submarine warfare, January 1917.
A huge gamble pushed by Ludendorff, overriding the Chancellor's concerns. Meyer shows this as the move that basically guarantees American entry into the war.
Before that, though, Ludendorff pulls back to the Hindenburg Line, Operation Alberic.
Yes, a strategic withdrawal, shorten the lines, build incredibly strong defenses, conserve manpower. But Meyer points out it was also a confession of weakness, potentially damaging German morale.
And then the world shifts. Russia.
A revolution. March 1917, Tsar Nicholas abdicates. End of the Romanovs. Widespread unrest, food riots, soldiers joining protests in Petrograd. A truly transformative moment Meyer captures. The Allies were initially jubilant, thinking it meant democracy.
They couldn't foresee the Bolsheviks.
Not yet. But things weren't all going the Allies' way on the Western Front either. The Neville offensive in April 17.
Another disaster.
A costly one. 270,000 French casualties. Led to widespread mutinies in the French army. Neville was sacked. Pétain took over again, had to restore morale through reforms, not just repression. Shows the danger of overpromising and under-delivering from generals.
And Meyer emphasizes that 1917 saw these wars without guns too, political struggles.
Yes, huge power struggles within governments. Ludendorff basically running Germany as a military dictator. In Britain, Lloyd George clashing with his generals. Clemenceau rising in France, embodying total war.
I wage war!
Exactly. It was all-consuming, which sets the stage for the final desperate pushes. Passchendaele.
Also known as Third Ypres, July 1917, Haig's plan.
Another massive offensive. Unprecedented artillery bombardment, churning the ground into, well, blood and mud, as Lloyd George called it. Nightmare conditions. Meyer mentions General Currie predicting the horrific casualty numbers beforehand, showing leaders knew the cost but went ahead anyway.
Meanwhile, Germany is preparing its own last-ditch effort.
Ludendorff knows time is running out. American troops are arriving in greater numbers. He plans Operation Michael, a massive offensive in the West for spring 1918. Go for broke before the Americans fully tip the balance. Meyer also touches on the Kaiser's erratic personality influencing things.
And the Allies. Were they coordinated?
Still struggling with that, Meyer points out. Internal disagreements, uncertainty. Meanwhile, the Treaty of Brest-Litovsk takes Russia out of the war, but at a huge cost to them, and saddles Germany with occupying vast territories. Creates lasting bitterness.
And Lawrence of Arabia is active in the Middle East around this time too?
Yes, Meyer weaves that thread in aiding the Arab revolt against the Turks, even as Britain is making conflicting promises behind the scenes.
So Operation Michael launches March 21st, 1918.
Huge surprise attack. New stormtrooper tactics, innovative artillery barrages designed by Bruckmüller. Initial success is stunning. They punch a huge hole in the Allied lines.
But Ludendorff makes mistakes.
Meyer argues yes. He gets drawn into tactical gains instead of focusing on strategic objectives like the key railway hub at Amiens. His quote about just making a hole and letting the rest happen, it wasn't enough.
Overconfidence, or just exhaustion clouding judgment?
Probably a bit of both. He keeps pushing costly offensives, stretching his troops and supplies thin. But the Allies are adapting. They finally agree on a unified commander, Farch. American troops under Pershing are making a difference, despite Pershing insisting they fight as a separate army.
And the Spanish flu hits.
Devastatingly. Hits the Germans particularly hard, weakening already exhausted troops.
Then comes August 8th, 1918.
The Black Day of the German Army, as Ludendorff himself called it. A well-coordinated Allied counteroffensive, spearheaded by the Australians under Monash. Uses tanks effectively, achieves surprise. German lines just crumble, huge numbers surrender. Meyer marks this as the moment the tide truly definitively turned. The balance of power shifted.
And Ludendorff, how does he react?
Meyer shows him starting to crack, yet still clinging to hopes of a negotiated peace on favorable terms. But the Allies aren't offering that. Bulgaria collapses, seeks an armistice. The German army itself is disintegrating. Morale plummets.
Leading to collapse back home.
Political meltdown, naval mutinies, revolts spreading across Germany. The end is coming, rapidly.
So by late 1918, it's really unavoidable. The Central Powers collapse.
A result of years of grinding war, strategic errors, immense casualties, and finally, internal breakdown.
And Meyer's book leaves you with this powerful sense that the Great War didn't just end, it fundamentally changed the world.
Absolutely. It redrew maps, destroyed empires, bankrupted nations, and, crucially, sowed the seeds for World War II. Its legacy is still with us, shaping geopolitics today. It was this catastrophic convergence of nationalism, flawed leadership, and industrial-scale killing.
A world truly undone. Meyer closes with a really poignant quote, doesn't he? From a British sergeant watching the defeated Germans retreat.
Yes. They are marked with a sign of the defeated. Exhaustion of the spirit, which always accompanies exhaustion of the body.
It makes you wonder, doesn't it? What are those hidden costs of conflict, that exhaustion of the spirit? How does that linger not just for soldiers, but for societies, even now? Something heavy to think about.